Oh man, but yeah, speaking of things that degrade over time, much in the same way that when you turn into a zombie, your flesh degrades over time. Rob recommended
Oh,
a very very great movie, probably my favorite that I didn't recommend. uh, Train to Busan. So Rob, tell us a little bit about this movie.
yeah. So like Jacob said, it was the favorite one that he didn't pick. So fuck all of you. Well, to the two of you. No, Train to Busan is this South Korean zombie flick that I think it's from 2015 or 16. But it came onto my radar kind of out of nowhere. Brennan and I had watched The Raid 1 and 2, and we like,
Yeah.
I don't know about Brennan. I don't want to speak for Brennan, but like I had a kick where I was like, oh, like Asia's making better movies than America.
Just
Like,
really fun movies, really fun.
yeah,
Like,
In
yeah,
particular,
like
South
what's
Korean films, I would agree.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I mean,
South
lately
Korean
especially.
films, and The Raid is what from
I think it's like Thai Indonesian or something like that. I
yeah.
might be
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, something like that.
But yeah, South Korean films, like Jake said, yeah, South Korean films are like particularly dope. And so yeah, I'm not a huge zombie movie guy. Like I think that the zombie thing is like definitely played out right now, like in terms of modern media. And the modern zombie movies kind of ruin the older ones for me too, because it's like, well, I've kind of seen the same trope over and over and over again. And like even the original like basis of those tropes like kind of get worn out. But Train to Busan just really does a lot to be like zombie movies aren't like they're not fair. They're like fun, but they're like not fair to any of the characters. And there's like a lot of stuff in this movie where it's like if you're watching The Walking Dead, there's like, more sappiness to this. There's like a longer goodbye, or it's also like the zombies are just not actually a threat. And then when someone gets eaten or like bitten by a zombie, it's like, how did you fuck that up? Like you were
Right.
so safe, like you didn't need to like get yourself in that situation kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and you see it coming from a mile away too.
Yeah,
You're like,
and
dude, don't do it. Don't. I'm there. Fuck you. Why'd you crawl under that fence? Yeah, like
exactly. Why did you go down into this like dark fucking alleyway with like no one? Yeah, I obviously there are zombies down there, but Train to Busan is like the zombies are they're just like normal speed in the sense that like if a normal person gets bitten by a zombie, however fast they can run is like how fast the zombie runs, so it's like you just have a bunch of like just regular ass zombies running just as fast as your main characters, and our main characters are also trapped on a train. I mean, not to like spoil anything about the movie Train to Busan,
Yeah.
but our characters are trapped on a train for a while, and actually like I don't know if this had anything to do with it in terms of influence, but the way that Snowpiercer kind of divides the movie up into the different sections of the train, Train to Busan does like a really good job of dividing up the different sections of the train into like different trials and tribulations people have to get through. The movie also does this really awesome thing where as the characters are like making their way through the film, there's no exposition from anyone about how the rules work. So you have to watch the characters figure out the rules of the world they're residing in as there's actual, like stakes at hand. People are still dying, and it's like there's a great scene where they figure out that the zombies are almost entirely blind and that they like go based off noises. And so it like kind of combines a bunch of different tropes, including a Snowpiercer trope where it's like they go into a tunnel for like 2 minutes of the movie, so all the cars black out, and they have to sneak through this train car in like complete silence trying to get around these zombies. And it's like I've played video games where that's a trope, and it's like, oh yeah, this is scary. This is like, this sucks having to walk like inches away from a zombie to try to creep around them. Like you're trying to like awkwardly like get between a crowd of people, you know, like.
It's definitely, that scene in particular is probably, I don't know, it's definitely one of the most tense scenes in the entire movie. That's a lot of tension right there.
Yeah.
So it's really, you feel it.
And this is the time when like they have to crawl on the upper racks to get by them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they go through tunnels like I think 2 or 3 times, but yeah, the one they're doing that. They're crawling up on the racks where you would put your luggage, and oh my god, that is an awesome scene.
That's why they realize that the zombies are like totally blind, because they go into the tunnel and it's like everyone like stops talking, like, you know, the sound almost totally cuts out, and they realize like, oh, like these zombies stopped attacking us too. Like these zombies are like also kind of at a loss for what to do in this situation.
Yeah, they're definitely site-based, because like right in the beginning, the pregnant lady, she like does the smart thing of like throwing water on newspaper and putting it up on the windows so like the zombies can see where they're at.
Yeah.
I love that. I loved her and her husband so much.
I mean, this Rob will probably love talking about it, but this movie, like, it's, other than being a zombie movie, this is like the ultimate like dad's rock.
It is the yes.
Straight up beefcake hunk like level. Like this guy's he's a
well,
thick
yeah,
old
you get a thick dad, and you get a real gaunt tall dad.
Who's like
they're
gotta
both
like
awesome.
He's gotta like make up for what he is. This
Aspire,
other dad has gotta like protect the child that he has. Yeah,
make up for his lack of thickness.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
Papa, you're not thick enough, right, child.
Yeah, I mean, those are our 2 main characters. Like, yeah, are fathers, and there's like a cool dichotomy between them where it's like the one main character has his daughter with him, and the other guy has his pregnant wife. So it's like he's like, you know, they're both fathers, just like in way different like parts of, you know, fatherhood at that time. But the way that they form these relationships between these strangers as you go through, especially like in the beginning, where like a lot of the characters are really quick to be like every man for themselves. But the ones that survive are the ones who realize, like, okay, like, teamwork is actually the answer. Except, like, the one most selfish, like, the guy who is the real world personification of, like, greed and selfishness survives. Like, so that, even though it's, like, you don't have that weird thing The Walking Dead has where it's like, well, we're a big group of selfish people who have decided instead of taking from each other, we'll morph our selfishness together and be a giant selfish thing. You know, it's like, it's just this one guy who like continues to like bring selfishness. You know, there's a lot of great stuff in this movie. For me, the big thing is like, it's, you know, it's my favorite zombie movie. I watched this movie a couple months after my own father passed. So this is a zombie movie that made me cry multiple times. I mean, like, genuinely cry in front of Brennan. So I will say I have.
No. It's not just that he passed away, but he also became a zombie. You know, it's like it really hit home for you.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You know, I try to block that part out. You know.
More so just trying to respect his memory and not so much the fact that he tried to kill me immediately upon passing by infecting me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like you don't want to hold a dying man's actions against him, but what about an already dead? Like,
an undead man, so to say.
Actually, a little bit. We're trying to do this for a little bit. Sorry.
No, but yeah, for me, like, I definitely have a little bit of a weird emotional connection to this movie because so many times in this movie, Brennan just heard from the other side of the room, "Daddy." So I mean,
specifically in the voice of a small Asian child, which really
small
confused
Asian
him.
child, yeah.
In perfect South Korean. I was like blown away. I was truly floored by that. I was like, that sounds perfect. Damn.
And Brennan, you spent a lot of time in South Korea, so.
Oh
you
yeah, I
would
mean,
know.
yeah. I've seen Parasite twice, so
Trying to spread that
is.
North Korean splendor into the South.
One thing I definitely really like about the movie, and it's this movie, I think, especially with the comparison to The Walking Dead, where at a certain point, it's like, you know what, actually the humans are the real monsters. And I think part of that is because it's like ashamed at a certain point of being a zombie show. Whereas I think something common with like South Korean and a lot of like Asian cinema and stuff like that, and maybe just foreign cinema in general, from like what I've seen with certain French films, is they are just not afraid of being obvious, or like they're not ashamed of like the kind of movie they're making. Whereas I feel like in America we have to like be like, oh, it's a zombie show, but it's really like a soap opera about there, like as Rob said, just a bunch of selfish, annoying fucking people or whatever.
Well, it feels like every new zombie movie that comes out, every script must start with, "Ugh, it's another zombie movie."
We know we hate zombie movies.
It's a zombie movie.
Nobody likes zombies.
It's a zombie movie, but is always
Yeah,
the thing.
exactly.
Exactly. And this kind of has that with it's on a train, but actually it's just like a good movie with like good characters, cool tense. Like it's not like the train doesn't feel like a gimmick. Like it doesn't feel like Snakes on a Plane. It doesn't feel like it was just there to be like, damn, that's crazy. It's like, actually no, this is like really well structured. And as Rob was saying, with like each of the compartments, they're their own little beats of the story that have their own little individual arcs within them, and that's like really cool.
One thing I was going to say earlier is that Rob kind of mentioned like how the 3-act structure is kind of like divided up, like based on like the beats of like what cars they enter and all that. I would say almost too is kind of the whole structure of the movie. It also plays on like the stops that they like at the actual like stations itself. Like those are your little like story beats that I really liked about it.
And I wanted to touch on that because the movie starts at the beginning of like an outbreak, and I mean it's so interesting because between our characters getting on the train and the first stop, when it's like, oh shit, like the world is really like getting bogged down with zombies, it's like an hour. It's like literally an hour passes between like getting on the train and like, oh shit, like the outbreak is like taking over the cities that we're supposed to stop at. And I wanted to like just say, all the characters that you're introduced to and that are killed off and are supposed to be like emotional deaths for the viewer are all 100% earned. Unlike a lot of zombie movies or horror movies in general, where it's like, we just need 6 very killable characters. It's like, it feels like they wrote this movie being like, how do we make these characters the most unkillable before we kill them off in front of the people?
I mean, duct tape arms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, the baseball kid falling in love and having his crush like reciprocate that love, and then they both just get killed.
Good way to go out, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, not by zombie, but yeah. I hear
well,
you.
yeah, definitely not by zombie.
You don't have to see the relationship go downhill if it does eventually. I'm a pessimistic man.
Yeah, I was like, Jake, go to couple counseling.
There's actually a spin-off.
It always falls apart.
There's a spin-off movie where we just focus on them, and we realize that their relationship coming to an end is actually a metaphor for someone who's infected with the zombie virus contemplating suicide.
Oh.
And that is a callback to another episode of the Buttery Males podcast that you should check out. So go listen to it.
Listen to it before you go to sleep. Our nightmare fuel inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing I do have to say about it. Excuse me. You know what? I forgot. So that's that.
Well, I got something. In the beginning, where the main character works, I kind of miss this, and I feel bad for this, but I don't know. Does he work or have anything to do with like the outbreak actually happening?
So it seems like he is like an mid to upper level executive at the company that accidentally releases this virus.
Holy
so
shit.
he is like
Okay.
he is getting like periodic notifications from his like secretary or assistant, who is a man. Men can be assistants too. We live in the 21st century. That's actually maybe the last thing I want to say about the movie, because like I feel like I've sucked its dick pretty hard for the last 10 minutes and my mouth is getting tired. The one thing that this movie does very interestingly, and I think it comes back to like people not really knowing how the zombies work and like the nature of the outbreak, is that information is so very scarce in this film, where it's like The Walking Dead, it seems like every other episode there's a character being like, I heard about a pharmacy with a bunch of supplies 400 miles from here. It's like, okay, we're the only 3 people within 400 miles. So I don't know who the fuck told you that, but it's like,
who's telling you this?
Where are these people that you keep speaking to?
God told me. God's the one telling me.
I saw a half-empty bottle of Pepto-Bismol on the shelf 300 yards away.
It's like, Tony, if you weren't always right about it, we would probably start to ask questions.
Yeah, we're out of bread, we're out of water, but I saw some Pepto-Bismol.
So we're good.
Someone
guys.
spilled out a bottle of Pepto-Bismol and wrote a message in the ground that said 400 miles this way. So that's how I know.
You want your precious Pepto, you'll have to, travel for it, you bastards.
Left a trail of Pepto droplets 400 miles long.
The one thing I was going to say is that one thing that really turns me off in horror movies is like
Really
when the
sexy women, I know.
Well,
I
yeah,
hate
what are you
really
going to do?
sexy
Yeah,
women,
yeah.
too.
I like the killing. The thing that really turns me off in horror movies a lot of the time is I do need a sense of hope. I do need at least a little sliver of hope. And a lot of times in movies when it gets to the point of like, there's clearly no chance of a happy ending here in any way. Not that I always need a happy ending, but it's just one of those things where I do kind of tune out a little bit because I feel like I'm sensitive to it. This movie has a bunch of like all hope is lost, deep despair moments that, because the characters and because it's all so like, for lack of a better word, fun and like just like, interesting, that doesn't like set in so deeply with me. And like I was like totally on board the entire way, even when it seemed like, I don't know how they're gonna do this one. That was just like what it was.
I will say that they do a good job of being like, well, listen, 99% of the hope is gone, but that 1% is there's still like 1% of hope. And then the next thing, it's like, that 1%, we're going to whittle another 99% off of that. So by the end of the movie, they've got like the teensiest little bit of like, maybe something good comes down the road for who's left, but like probably not.
Can I just say though, like I should have mentioned it earlier, but we were talking about the secretary and like how he periodically gets like information through. Like one of the most like I could see why some people might say it's a little bit too melodramatic, but I really, really love the scene where it's like the last call with the secretary and you find out that his company is the one responsible for releasing it. And the secretary says, "Is this our fault?" And they just both start crying. That's such a powerful moment. And I love it. You don't, that's not really something that gets explored too often in stories like this, I think, is the like sense of responsibility for your own actions, and it's great.
Yeah, no, this movie holds corporations responsible.
I actually don't care about zombie movies that much, but I loved this movie. It was so much fun. So thank you, Rob. That was awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys liked it. Like I said, I don't like zombie movies either. And this is one that just like, for some reason, it just does it. It just slaps through and through.
Any other closing thoughts we have about Train to Busan, or?
Well, duct tape arms.
Duct tape
Brennan
arms.
Brennan has to thank me also.
Yeah, Brennan.
I showed you this movie.
He might have. It's to be fair, I get
Thank
like
you.
95% of the media I'm interested in is from Brennan. So
One last thing I have to say about it, actually, I was looking at the Wikipedia page, and I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but I am just finding out that there is
a sequel.
There's a sequel called Peninsula by the same director.
really,
Set looks like the poster says 4 years later, so I guess it's a little while further.
I've not
whatever.
heard great things, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm I haven't heard of it, so I'm like, it probably isn't.
Yeah,
But that's cool. I mean,
I would be
I
interested
stand
in
by the director,
seeing it at least. Yeah.
like-
So yeah, if you if our conversation about Train to Busan was intriguing enough for you and you haven't seen it yet, it's free on Tubi, free on Crackle, free on Sling, free on Amazon Prime, free on Viki. I have no clue what that is, and you can also rent it
Viki
on
is just Pornhub.
Vudu, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, all that. So yeah, Train to Busan, amazing zombie movie. I
You gotta
thoroughly
look up
enjoyed it.
Vicky's. You gotta look up Vicky's profile on Pornhub.
Vicky's
She's
trained
got
to
all-
Vicky's trained to she has it uploaded in parts, 10-minute increments.
Vicky's trained to Busan.